Hi everyone. Thank you all for coming. My name's Tessa. I'm one of the committee members of Queer Asia, and we're really happy to have such a good turnout for this event. There's actually a mistake on the program, so I hope you're not disappointed at the event, because it's actually not about, not specifically about activism, but about queer lives and being queer in the PRC, in the People's Republic of China. So with us today, we're very lucky to have Dilna Rayhan, who is doctor in sociology, working on migration and inter-ethnic relations, Uyghurs and their environment. She teaches at the French National Institute for Oriental Studies and is publishing director of Uyghur French magazine Regard sur les Uyghurs, sorry for my French. Li Maizi, who's here, has been working with non-profit organizations and leading performance art campaigns in support of feminist and LGBT causes in China since 2011. She was one of the Feminist Five arrested in 2015 ahead of Women's Day for planning to distribute anti-sexual harassment flyers and stickers on public transport. She was charged with picking quarrels and provoking trouble, a charge a charge that could have resulted in up to 10 years in prison if not for her release following an uproar from supporters at home and abroad. Shay, who's sitting next to me, is a PhD student at the University of Nottingham. Their research includes ethnicity, gender and sexuality in contemporary China. They are also founder of the Women and Gender in Modern China Facebook and Twitter page, which is much more than it might seem if you don't know about it. It's been, for me, sort of one of my main sources of this kind of constant flow of information about issues of gender and sexuality in China, and I'm sure a lot of you are on it and feel the same, so yeah. And last but not least, Whiskey Chow is an artist based in London. Prior to moving to the UK, Whiskey was involved in feminist and LGBT activism in China, working closely with local queer communities in Guangzhou. Since starting studies at the Royal College of Art, London, Whiskey's work has focused on female masculinity, stereotypes, and the cultural projection of Chinese and Asian identities. Those of you who were at the conference yesterday evening might have seen Whiskey's performance. And I'd also like to introduce Iskandar, who, thank you for coming. Iskandar will be translating a little bit. So Iskandar is going to start by giving a brief kind of overview of Xinjiang, the region, for those of you who might not be sure, and then Dilna will be presenting, and then we'll start the discussion.
Are we the first?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So, hello everyone, thanks for being here and interested in LGBT issues in China. So, Dilna is going to speak about LGBT issues among the Uyghur communities in what is called officially Xinjiang the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region, which is located in the western part of China, bordering Kazakhstan, Afghanistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, and Pakistan, India. And the Uyghurs are a Turkic-speaking people. They speak a language very basically the same as Uzbek, which is very closely related to Turkish, and it's predominantly Muslim people. They're classified as one of the 55 official ethnic minorities in China. And on the basis of Soviet ethnography and the Xinjiang, so every kind of ethnic minority in China was assigned a specific region for them to be self-governing, although the reality is far from the theory and the ideology of ethnic autonomy. The Uyghurs are the majority in Xinjiang, which is sometimes referred to as East Turkestan or Chinese Turkestan or Chinese Tartary. And although in big cities, especially Urumqi or Urumqi, with a bit of English pronunciation, which is the capital of Xinjiang, the influx of Chinese migrants have caused the Uyghur population to dwindle over the years, especially since the beginning of the 1980s. So over to you.
I'm sorry to speak in French because I am minority here also. I am eternal minority everywhere. I'm not very comfortable in English, so thank you, Iskandar. Voilà. Et je vais commencer par, en fait, juste pour donner une petite introduction et une brève histoire de la communauté LGBT ouïghour dans la région. Et c'est comme ça n'a pas grande différence du reste de la Chine en réalité. Donc, depuis avant les années 2000, notamment 99. Comme le reste de la Chine, dans la région ouïghour aussi, les communautés LGBT, ils se trouvaient plutôt dans l'espace public, comme les parcs, etc. Mais contrairement...
Okay. So, I was going to take more, but I would like to start with a brief introduction on the subject of LGBT Uyghurs. And like the rest of China, the situation is not that different from the rest of China, and especially before the year 2000, and especially in the 1990s, LGBT life, Uyghur LGBT life, was quite in the public.
Enfin, ce que je veux dire par là, c'est effectivement c'est pour les populations chinoises ou autres de la Chine, enfin chinoises, les Han et autres, c'était plutôt l'espace public, tandis que pour les Ouïghours, non seulement l'espace public comme les parcs, etc., mais aussi enfin une particularité spécifiquement ouïghour, c'est que il y a des soirées ou alors des soirées en fait entre hommes uniquement, masculines. Donc en fait ça depuis toujours en fait dans la tradition ouïghour, cette tradition en fait elle offre un espace particulier pour les LGBT. Enfin pour les gays plutôt.
Yeah. And for Chinese people, i.e. Han people, the space was LGBT space was public, but for the Uyghurs it was both public and private. So in private spaces, the Uyghurs actually male homosexuals would organize private parties only between the Uyghurs. They wouldn't mix with Chinese people, and it's only male exclusive.
Ouais, après, comment dire, depuis les années 2000, il y a plusieurs organisations en fait, à Urumqi, donc dans la capitale. Il y a plusieurs organisations pour les LGBT, mais leur activité principale, ça consiste toujours dans la prévention contre les HIV. Donc, et notamment, en fait, la région Uyghur, elle est l'une des premières régions après Yunnan. C'est la deuxième qui est le plus affectée par le sida, et que les Ouïghours, il fait partie les Ouïghours sont les premières victimes de cette maladie dans la région Ouïghour. C'est pourquoi aussi l'activité de la de centre de prévention, l'activité de Tianton, Tianzai, etc. Ces organisations pour les LGBT, il consiste à produire des informations pour la prévention des HIV, mais malheureusement, leur activité toujours ciblée les communautés sinophones et pas les communautés turcophones. Donc, c'est toujours, en fait, les turcophones sont exclus de ces activités.
Yeah. So, since the year 2000 onwards, there has been a few LGBT organizations in the capital, Urumqi, but these organizations are exclusively targeting on the prevention of HIV, so they're only about to prevent HIV and AIDS. And in fact, the Uyghur region is the second largest, the second most affected region in China after Yunnan province by HIV and by AIDS, and especially the Uyghurs in their own region are the most affected population. And but these organizations, which sprang up in the year in the noughties, were unfortunately Chinese-speaking and targeting at the Chinese-speaking audience instead of Turkic-speaking, because they are the Uyghurs and the Kazakhs and Uzbeks, and they're all Turkic-speaking. Yeah, so these minorities are excluded from, to a certain extent, if they don't speak Chinese, they are excluded from the service.
Pour la particularité des LGBT ouïghours dans la région, je fais juste quelques points principaux. Notamment le premier, c'est que, étant donné que les Ouïghours sont musulmans, et donc l'homosexualité est condamnée dans l'islam, donc d'un point de vue général, et donc en fait le poids de la religion, d'une part le poids de la religion, et d'autre part aussi le nationalisme ouïghour, il condamne l'homosexualité sévèrement. Et c'est aussi par rapport, étant donné que les Ouïghours ils sont déjà discriminés en tant qu'une ethnie, une population. Ensuite, lorsqu'on est gay ou lesbien ou trans, et on est doublement, triplement discriminé, à la fois par les Chinois, à la fois par le gouvernement, à la fois par leur propre population. Et ça, c'est le premier point.
I'll just do it.
Oui, vas-y. Pardon.
LGBT Uyghurs, because of their Uyghur identity and their LGBT identity, they are kind of within China, or within their own region, a double minority because their Muslim identity, that Islam condemns homosexuality by principle, and Uyghur nationalism also condemns homosexuality. So they're not only discriminated by the Chinese government, and also by their own people. And this is the first point.
Ensuite, traditionnellement, chez les Ouïghours, les hommes efféminés, ils sont rarement agressés. Et ils ont toujours travaillé en tant qu'artistes. Notamment, ce qui est contradictoire, notamment dans le sud. Le sud de la région, il est peuplé 80-90% par les Ouïghours. Et les hommes efféminés, ils ont été toujours artistes dans les soirées publiques au prévis. Et que c'est très récent, l'agressivité envers les homosexuels, c'est très récent. Parce que bien sûr, il y a la question de visibilité, d'une part, et puis d'autre part, il y a la religion qui commence de plus en plus peser dans la vie publique. Mais ça, en fait, elle est d'une part récente, cette agressivité envers les homosexuels. D'autre part, elle est encore très rare. Elle n'est pas visible, elle est rare. Ensuite, dans le reste de Urumqi, par exemple, dans les autres villes, et encore moins dans les espaces ruraux, les gens, ils connaissent même pas le mot homosexuel.
Yeah, the second point is that traditionally, effeminate men, which is what people would call gay, they wouldn't be targeted by attacks as much. Even in the south of Xinjiang, in the Uyghur region, where 80 to 90% of the population still remains Uyghur, because the effeminate men, they would always go into entertainment and they would become artists, so they serve a social function, and attacks on homosexual, like visibly homosexual or LGBT men, i.e. effeminate men, are quite a recent and still rare phenomenon. And in the rural areas of Xinjiang, people haven't even heard about the words homosexual, and the invention of the word homosexual in the Uyghur language is quite a recent thing as well.
Et puis aussi, comme les gens ils savent, en fait, notamment dans l'espace urbain, les gens ils savent aujourd'hui, l'homosexualité a toujours existé évidemment. Seulement c'était très invisible. Là maintenant ça commence à être visible dans les grandes villes, notamment à Urumqi. Et puis, mais par contre, c'est pas question de faire leur coming out. Dans la diaspora, on connaît très peu de Ouïghours qui ont fait leur coming out publiquement et on n'a jamais connu quelqu'un dans la région.
Yes, in urban areas, homosexuality has, despite the fact that it's always existed, and it's becoming more visible. I mean, even in a diaspora, it's not very common for Uyghurs, LGBT Uyghurs, to come out. And in a Uyghur region, i.e. Xinjiang, it's not heard of. It's not commonly heard of.
En fait, avec l'identité musulmane, lorsqu'on regarde enfin, les études réalisées sur les LGBT musulmans, la première question, ou alors l'un des problèmes principaux des musulmans LGBT, c'est ils se sentent comment on dit, condamnables devant leur religion, devant Dieu, et qu'ils vivent très mal cette vie étant musulmans, étant gay ou lesbien ou trans. Et cette question, il est intéressant parce que chez les Ouïghours, cette question, elle ne pèse pas, elle ne pèse pas tant, contrairement aux autres musulmans, aux autres pays musulmans, voilà, aux autres sociétés musulmanes. Et chez les Ouïghours, la principale question, elle n'est pas leur musulmanité, mais leur ethnicité et aussi leur comment réconcilier leur vie publique et leur vie privée, et comment réconcilier aussi, comment manager le gros souci de mariage, satisfaire la société ouïghour, satisfaire la famille ouïghour et aussi avoir des enfants. Ça, c'est ça leur premier problème et leur principal problème. Leur musulmanité n'est pas vraiment un problème.
Yeah. On the question of being Muslim, in fact, the weight of religion, although there is one, is not as important to LGBT Uyghurs as their ethnicity, and which is quite interesting in comparison with other Muslim LGBT members of society in the world. And the second biggest problem which worries the LGBT Uyghurs the most, is how to reconcile their public life and their private life. And among this, one of the biggest problems is the question of marriage and how to to have children. And this is so being Muslim is not the biggest worry for LGBT Uyghurs, but their social life is.
Après, il y a aussi la question de comment en fait ils se retrouvent et comment ils s'organisent les LGBT. Et chez les Ouïghours aussi, comme je disais auparavant, c'était souvent par les soirées entre hommes ou alors dans l'espace public, mais aujourd'hui grâce à l'internet, donc il y a les sites web et aussi les applications, mais il n'y a aucun site de rencontre, même pas pour les hétéros ouïghours. Donc les LGBT ouïghours, ils utilisent les applications et les sites web chinois, donc exclusivement. Et puis ça c'est pour la région. Ensuite dans la diaspora, évidemment, ils utilisent comme le reste du monde. Et puis oui, pardon.
So in the Uyghur region, LGBT Uyghur males organize private parties, as I've said, and all people meet on the internet. But there aren't specific Uyghur language or Uyghur developed websites or apps for the Uyghur people. So they tap into Chinese general sort of websites and apps used in the rest of China. And in the diaspora, obviously, people use the apps and the websites as the rest of the world.
Un dernier point pour les Ouïghours, la question de comment en fait la relation se passe entre les LGBT chinois et les LGBT ouïghours. Parce qu'on dit souvent, la communauté LGBT elle est plus open-mind, donc ils sont plus tolérants, etc. Est-ce que les Ouïghours ils sont autant opprimés, discriminés chez les Chinois que enfin, chez cette communauté que dans le reste de la société aussi. Mais ce qui est intéressant, que cette relation, beaucoup d'Ouïghours qui sortent, beaucoup d'Ouïghours LGBT qui ont des relations avec les Chinois, ce sont souvent les Minkaohan, c'est-à-dire les Ouïghours qui ont fait leurs études en chinois. Les Minkaomin, les Ouïghours qui ont fait des études en ouïghour, ils ont moins la tendance d'aller vers eux, ou alors d'avoir de relations. Et puis aussi, d'autre part aussi, en fait, cette discrimination, soit la communauté gay, la communauté LGBT chinoise, elle n'a pas la conscience de la réalité, comment vivent les Ouïghours, même à Urumqi, alors qu'ils vivent, ils voient les restrictions, les discriminations envers les Ouïghours, mais ils n'ont pas cette conscience. D'après les témoignages qu'on a recueillis, et ils ne condamnent pas et qu'ils n'ont même pas la sympathie. Et ils pensent que c'est lié à l'actualité, aux choses, à la politique, donc il faut subir et que un jour peut-être ça ira et que tout le monde va être heureux un jour. Mais ils ne condamnent pas, ils ne participent pas, ils n'ont pas la sympathie pour les Ouïghours, même lorsqu'ils sortent avec un Ouïghour ou une Ouïghour, ils ne vont pas le pas de faire quelque chose, ou alors au moins pour la consoler. C'est ça qui est triste, je trouve.
The last point is the relation between LGBT Chinese and LGBT Uyghur people in the region. First of all, well, we often ask the question, just because you are LGBT, does that mean that you're not necessarily open-minded? And find that in Xinjiang, in the Uyghur region, people who have trans-ethnic relations, such as a Uyghur dating a Chinese, the Uyghurs who date Chinese among the LGBT community are usually Minkaohan, which is a term used for Uyghurs who did entire education in Chinese, so their social sort of behaviors are like Chinese people. And Minkaomin, which is Uyghurs who have studied exclusively in Uyghur schools, they would be less likely to date Chinese people. And another point is that it's on discrimination. Are LGBT Chinese people more aware of the reality, especially those who date Uyghurs? Are they more aware of the reality of the discrimination against the Uyghurs in the Uyghur region? Unfortunately, what is really sad is that they don't seem to be. If they see some certain cases of discrimination, they will just very likely to link it with what is happening in other areas of society outside of the LGBT community. We will link it with the global sort of politics in China rather than the issue itself.
Rather than the discrimination against Uyghurs.
Huh? Rather than discrimination, rather than racism itself. Yeah.
Juste à ce propos, j'ai un témoignage extrême. I have a witness, a very interesting witness in this topic, especially the LGBT relationship between Uyghurs and the Chinese. And if we have enough time after, maybe, I would like to. It's really interesting and important for me, for my research. I mean, I would like to share it to read if we have enough time after.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Should we have a bit of a discussion with the rest of the panelists, and then hopefully at the end we'll have time. So I was wondering if Maida or Whiskey have any sort of ideas, having heard about Dilna's research about maybe where homophobia stems from, when it exists in the communities that you've grown up in or been working in contrast. I don't know if either of you.
but I have heard another. Sorry. Yeah. I have heard another point of the gay and AIDS organization appearing in Xinjiang in 2000. I think this is quite similar as because I used to involve into the LGBT movement, so I know that our movement are also starting from this kind of AIDS issue rather than go to the LGBT issue. So because this kind of organization are easier to get the money, so they have much more resource. Then they can go to do some kind of gay cultural event. And also this is I don't know because you've mentioned that most of them the volunteers are Chinese spoken, right?
Yes, Chinese.
Yeah, so they couldn't reach the people speaking the other language. Yeah, because I think this is quite new, and also the Chinese AIDS movement are also not have a long history. I think it's kind of from 1997 when Gao Yaojie have that kind of go to Henan, and they have the AIDS village, and the AIDS work start from there, and it's not long history. So I don't know if that do you know what kind of organization it is? Is that a kind of branch of some kind of LGBT center from the other city, or they have their own?
It's about the history of HIV production.
Yeah.
Okay. I think the at the beginning the Han people, the majority of China, and they mainly focus on HIV issue. At the beginning, they never mentioned about LGBT or gay homosexuality. They will mention about men who have sex with men.
Yeah.
So it's MSM community.
Yeah.
So they are trying to avoid the gay or homosexual in their description. And then it turned out it's unavoidable. It's a process. It's a long time later. Although the HIV protection or have a severe problem of corruption, and then a lot of global foundation, they withdraw their money from those programs. And I know there's a Xinjiang in Urumqi, there's a LGBT center also. They have their HIV tax program. Most this sort of program have a strong connection with the government departments. Without the strong connection with CDC, I think it's very hard for them to survive. The same module in Xi'an, also the western of China, in the east. In the northeast of China, basically the gay community, they are large HIV test organization, and also they are gay community. They rely on this sort of system to survive.
Shay, do you have anything to add to that?
So I guess about where homophobia stems from, right? That was, I guess, the original question. I mean, you can think about all the psychological, cultural, social, political, economic, historical factors that come into play in terms of where homophobia kind of arises from. But I think it's also really important to contextualize particular moments of homophobia and when it flares up, when it becomes really overt, and when it becomes particularly dangerous and even violent for queer LGBT people. And so I think there is, thinking really broadly, there is perhaps a desire to stabilize and fix things when everything is in a flux and everything's changing very rapidly. And we could think about that in contemporary China at the moment. I think, my research area is Tibet, but I think there's a lot of similarities that we could think about, particularly rising nationalism across Uyghur communities and Tibet. And I think one of the things that has come up over the last 2 days here is, nationalism is no friend to queer people and women. And so that's a big problem, I think, among Uyghur people and other ethnic minorities in China. And so, what goes along with nationalism is this politics of purity, fertility, virility, all of this kind of stuff. And so, that nationalism really comes out of so much frustration with state oppression, with crackdowns on cultural and religious practices across Uyghur communities and Tibetan communities, political marginalization, socioeconomic disadvantage, rampant Islamophobia as well, which maybe we'll talk a bit more about. And so there is so much anxiety about cultural survival. And with that, I think, you get so many calls for unity. And there's a resistance. I see a lot in Tibetan discourses of queerness and also homophobia. There is this discourse calling for unity and a resistance against anything that might fragment or trouble that unity. And queer issues happen to be one of those issues. So nationalism really closes down that space for queer people. I would just also add a point as well about what actually constitutes homophobia in Xinjiang or among Uyghur communities and Tibetans is another question. It's really hard to do research on this stuff, but it would be interesting as well to think about what people who are experiencing homophobia consider to be acts of homophobia. I think that's also another issue.
I actually think it'd be really nice to hear the sort of case study that you wanted to, leading on from what Shay just said. I think that would work really nicely. So do you want to read that now and then we'll carry on the discussion afterwards?
Right. Okay. And for the heterosexual Uyghurs, the marriage, the taux de mariage, c'est comment dire? Taux de taux. Oui, voilà, c'est ça, merci. Marriage rate between Uyghurs and the Chinese is the less of in China, in whole China, the only 1%, and it's according to the research, Uyghurs, the most difficult or most inaccessible population to the rest of the population in China concerning interethnic marriage. And we can see for the homosexual, for the LGBTs, it is, I think it's more better in the LGBT communities because, of course, they are more open-minded and less nationalist also. So, voilà. It is the observation of a friend of mine with who I study. I am doing my research with her. She's an American. She's an American in Urumqi, and she is observing Uyghurs, LGBT Uyghurs in Urumqi, and I am observing Uyghurs, LGBT Uyghurs in diaspora. And this is a witness she sent me. Voilà. Here is a sample from 2 separate incidents in conversation with the same person to illustrate the conflict LGBT Uyghurs sometimes feel between loyalty to one's own ethnicity and acceptance in Han culture. While they often find acceptance for their homosexuality in Han culture, they also find discrimination in Han communities as well. This cognitive dissonance leads to conflict over loyalty to their ethnicity whether they find acceptance for their culture and the language, but discrimination over their sexual identity. These two conversations were with M, who is a Uyghur from urban area in Xinjiang, in a city outside of Urumqi, and was educated in the bilingual education system, outside of bilingual education system. She went to university in Urumqi and has her bachelor's degree. She is female presenting and is married to a Han Butch lesbian, who she refers to as her husband. They are not legally married since there is not possible in mainland China yet, but she and her husband did perform a marriage ceremony in Urumqi with friends in a bar, in a gay bar. M Poshtaluk, so M double language, educated in double language. So I can read and write in Uyghur, though I have to admit that I can't read and write very well anymore. Ever since I came to Urumqi for university, I've been surrounded by Chinese, and I have not had the opportunity to practice my Uyghur, and I start to lose some of it. So my Uyghur is not good anymore because I'm starting to forget a lot of it. I've known since I was a little girl that I was gay and I liked girls, but I grew up in a small town and it's pretty conservative, so I could not really date anyone for real. But then when I got to college, there were lesbians everywhere, and that's when I started dating. I don't have never seen that. Ok. Voilà, et qu'est-ce qu'elle a dit? J'étais où?
No, there was. You were saying there were lesbians everywhere.
Ah oui, d'accord. Voilà. Okay, when I started dating, that's when I first learned what it felt like to have that feeling of love. I dated 3 girls before I met my current husband. And the question, are you a T or a P? That's maybe you can explain what is T and P.
So in the Chinese lesbian community, we have T, P, and H. So T is referring to butch, which is much more masculine, and P is referring to the feminine one, and the H is they are half and half, but they might have some preference. But they are so-called H, and it's very interesting that we have different terms in mainland China and in Hong Kong and in Taiwan. And because Taiwan is sharing the same T, but to referring P, they sometimes call it P or Po. And in Hong Kong, they will call TB and TBG, which is tomboy and tomboy's girl. And yeah, as far as I know, and then they call the H as pure. Yeah, so.
So are you a T or a P? Oh, you look both. That means you are an H, voila. Pardon. That's how I am too. That girl, yeah? Not me. I like anyone as long as they are girl. I still prefer T's over boys or trans men because they are still girls. I would not want to date a trans guy because that would be like dating a guy. But I prefer when they have small chests and a short hair and dress like a boy, like my husband. Yes, our lives have had a big change since we got married. It's not because we are living together now, since we've been living together for 2 years already. But it's that our relationship had become much deeper, more serious, closer than it was before. We feel even more in love than before, even if we do fight every day, all day, like an old married couple. But I think marriage certificate, our relationship will change again, and become even deeper once we were able to get a real legal marriage certificate. Then it will be even more real for us. We want to go abroad and get one. Or not, it's going to be a long time before it's legal in mainland China. We'll have to wait until we have grandchildren, maybe not even until our grandchildren's grandchildren. Especially here in Xinjiang, of all places, it's going to be a long time before it's legal here. And then M switched to Uyghur, and the two of us talked while her husband talked to their friend in Chinese and ignored us. I don't understand why people who believe in religion cannot accept homosexuality. I mean, is not the most important part of our religion about loving and taking care of others, of not lying and cheating, of being accepting and not judgmental? So I think that God will forgive me for this. This is very Uyghur, so if we can reconcile, we can reconcile our we can reconcile with the religion for our manners, so we can justify ourselves and say God will forgive us. Being lesbian does not do any harm to anyone else. There is not ziyanlık, that's not harm. It does not hurt anyone. It's about loving who you want to love, so I don't think it goes against our religion, or at least God will understand and forgive me. The question, do your parents know about you? My mom knows about me. I just always used to tell her about my girlfriends, and she says, my daughter, do not do that, you should not do that. But she is a college professor, so she is really well educated, and eventually she just said, okay, my daughter, if you are happy, then that's fine. As long as you are in fixed situation, stable situation, you are able to buy a house together and take care of each other, then I can't oppose that. She does not know that we got married, but she knows that we live together. She's been to our house before. We want to go home for the holidays together sometime soon, but I'm not sure when. But my dad does not know, and he will never know. He's really a strict father. We want to have kids, probably by going to the hospital and getting a sperm donor. There are lots of thousand kinds of things in inner China. But I come from a really educated background, and so I definitely want the sperm to come from a really educated, a really Yushu.
Educated sperm.
Really best person, Yushu person, with a good education, not some random hillbilly person I don't know about. It won't be a problem, because in China you can find out someone's entire family background just by checking the internet. So I'll check and make sure there is no mental disease in the family history. I just want my child to be really Yushu and be a really accomplished and smart person, so I want to make sure the sperm is good. And it's very rare among Uyghur LGBTs to know how to have the child by sperm. Because she get married with Chinese, so maybe she has more knowledge about this. The question, you should come over to the house. You should come over to the house. I can cook, and my husband cooks really well too. He's He is such a good cook that I gained 20 kilos since I moved in with him. Do you understand how much that's it? It's really a lot. And it's interesting here because even in Minngao and Uyghurs, it's not common to eat with Chinese cook. And we never ever go to a Chinese restaurant, even in diaspora. And so the Chinese people can come to our house to eat Uyghur food, but ever a Uyghur go to Chinese house to eat what they cook. So it's interesting that this person do that. So she is really assimilated. Voilà. Important notes from this conversation. Voilà. Obviously, since she is married to a Han Chinese person, and she mentioned she has a lot of Chinese friend, and is forgetting her Uyghur, so she is clearly open to Chinese people, interactions, and a close friendship with them. She is also very optimistic about introducing her Han husband to her Uyghur family and having children with them. This shows she is really comfortable in her Uyghur identity because she did not reject her Uyghur identity. She is still in her Uyghur family and has not deserved or left her family or her ethnicity. However, she is also very integrated in Chinese culture, and here shows equal loyalty to the both community, Chinese and Uyghur. A couple of weeks later, we had the following conversation, which was her and me, my friend, sitting across from her husband and her husband's Han friend. At first, it was conducted in Chinese as we were all talking together, but there were a few incidents where she turned to me and spoke in Uyghur, which I will indicate in when she switched into Uyghur. When we were eating dinner at Rendezvous, Em told me, the Uyghur girl, told me, we, my husband and I, went to look at houses today. We want to move because we heard our landlord is thinking about selling the house. So we got to get started in looking for a new house to rent. We want to look for a smaller house because it's just the two of us now. Younger sister moved back to Guangzhou. Her husband, her sister go back to Guangzhou. Enfin. So they need a bigger house, but they want to rent to us because I'm Uyghur. The Chinese landlord does not want to rent the house because I am Uyghur. It's not that, it's just mafan. Trouble. She speaks in Chinese here. It's not just mafan. They don't want to let us live in this house. They aren't letting any Uyghurs buy or rent houses in the city right now. They won't rent to me. What are we supposed to do? I have no idea what we are going to do if I can't live here. It does not matter that my hukou is an Urumqi hukou. They aren't letting Uyghurs live here. Hukou.
Household registration. Xinjiang household registration. Urumqi household registration.
She turned to me then and said in Uyghur this time, "This is our country too, isn't it? They won't even let us live in our own country." She rolling her eyes in exasperation. What kind of craziness is this? I'm sorry. But whatever, forget about it. the husband of M, husband's friends, Han friends, jumped in then, said, that's not, and here the comment, Han Chinese comment is interesting because, voilà, that's not actually true. Uyghurs and the minorities can rent, but it's just a more complicated. And the Marfan process, trouble. So maybe the landlord was just saying, but actually you can leave. It's just that they don't want to be responsible for any Marfan, for any trouble that might come to them. Also, there are reasons for this. Safety reasons that they cannot just let any Uyghur randomly live in the city. And the Uyghur said, I understand that they have certain regulation, but they are just pressure us to death. They can they can press us. I understand that. But do they need to pressure us to death? I don't think so. They don't need to pressure us this strictly. I'm sorry because that's also I lived all my life here. That's why when I read the witnesses, it reminds me of many things. Merci. Okay. They don't need to pressure us this strictly. How can we live as human like this? It's ridiculous and it's strict and unnecessary pressure. They don't
be so strict.
Right. They won't sell us a house. They won't give us a loan. They won't let us rent a house in our own country. Is this Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region or it is Hanzhou Autonomous Region? You tell me they are just putting the pressure on us to this point where we can't even breathe. She turned to me and then she spoke in English, in Uyghur, pardon. No wonder so many Uyghurs want to go abroad, but they won't let us do that either. The Chinese friend said, that's not true. They'll give you a loan. And Uyghur, the M, told a story about calling up a bank about a loan and them telling her that they don't give Uyghurs loans. And her husband said, Xinla.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
不要在外面乱说话。
Don't tell some random words like nonsense.
Right. And the Uyghur said, you are right, I should not be talking about this in public. And then she turned to me then and said in Uyghur, when we were in Gwangju, they came to our hotel in the middle of the night and took us to the Gwangju, the police station, to interrogate me for half an hour in the middle of the night. This is what I'm talking about. I cannot even stay in a hotel in my own country. But we should stop talking about this here. Rolling her eyes again. The Chinese said, well, what happened with this renting house thing today? Can't you just talk to them? Explain to them your situation. If you talk to the Minjing, he will let you stay there. Minjing is guardian of the car.
Civil police.
He will let you stay there. You just have to be strong and push the issue. It's within regulation for minorities to rent houses. You just have to fill out more paperwork. The Uyghur M said, this is what happened. today we went to look at a house, and the landlord just kept staring at me. Finally, she said, 你是少数民族吗? Are you minority? And then I said, yeah, I'm Uyghur. And then she said, oh, sorry, we don't rent Uyghurs. So I said, okay, now 我们走了. Okay, let's go. All right. And we left. If she says, we don't rent to Uyghurs, then I'm not going to sit there and try to negotiate with her. Okay, you should let me stay anyway. Her, no, I'm not going to stay somewhere where they don't want me there. And you should have, the Chinese said, you should have stayed and talked it about with her. And Uyghur respond, how would you feel if someone looked at you and based on the way your face looked, decided whether or not to rent to you? How would that make you feel? Think about it for a second. That's how I feel every single day of my life. It's same for us, for the rest of us. And that Chinese, other Chinese girl was quiet then, and her husband told her not to say anything more. I told M, the Uyghur, to be patient, and M turned to me and said in Uyghur, I have to say though, I am used to this. It's always been like this, and it will get better next year. And the Chinese said, it's been like this for everyone all year this year. Hopefully it will get better next year. And her husband said, this is a Maybanfa situation. There are
no
sans issue, without issue. We have no power or control over changing it, so there is no point in complaining or getting upset about it. I try to make a poor analogy between discrimination against gays and Uyghurs. For example, how would you feel if someone would not rent you because you are gay? Though everyone said it was totally different situation. I think later we had a conversation about Xinjiang time, and M, the Uyghur girl, she said she preferred to use Xinjiang time over Beijing time. Notes about this conversation. Also, the Uyghur girl is married to a Han Chinese and clearly very involved in Han community. She still has loyalty to her ethnicity and is not afraid to voice her frustrations or discrimination and poor publicity. Poor policy to her Han husband. This is
Thank you.
I'm very sorry because I read this and then I live it all my life there and I know how it's going on and so I lived also many things. So that's why it reminds me what I lived. That's why I'm sorry. I'm very sorry.
Don't be sorry, it's fine. Thank you so much for sharing it with us. There are so many things to pick out from that. I am going to say really quickly that if you would like to go to the Living Disobediently event, there are ushers outside ready to take you over. We're going to carry this on for a few more minutes because I think it's really important that we do that. Maida, I can see you've been writing lots down. Is there maybe one point in particular that you'd like to draw on? From that?
I'd like to talk about Islamophobia, which is more and more severe in China, and the general public, they hate Muslim a lot, and I quarrel Like it doesn't work. There's a large number of them due to the global conservative power, due to the tourism and in ISIS or other countries. Also, there's a clear division, like what I mentioned just now is like there's a clear division about Han people and the minorities. It is like that. I'm very weak to fight against defend for like Uyghur people. It's very hard. We live in the same country, and how could you just say I won't be friend with like Muslim and I won't be friend with Uyghur? It is just like, how could it be? I study in China University in Xi'an province. I eat Lanzhou ramen every day. At that time, the Lanzhou ramen is a very traditional food made by in the west of China, and so I know that feeling. But it's not like I know I'm Han people, so I can't have the deep understanding about that. And this is I just trying to emphasize, even though China is there's no long history of colonization, but the globalization, the conservative power have a strong influence in our country, and there's a clear division between the different minorities. I was worried a lot, I know that kind of desperate. And I'm worried about this country a lot. So I think, we need to know more. What I can share is only my experience. I used to pay a visit to Xinjiang and very limited experience.
Do you have something to add? Yeah.
Well, I just a feeling that in the personal life that this kind of lesbian couple kind of break the boundary. For example, the eating custom, but in terms of that kind of like to face that kind of nationalism, they do feel weekend has no idea to because she has mentioned that kind of hukou system, which is kind of like residency registry system. That's like you're born in different country or different area, so you will have different hukou. So the whole country use this kind of system to restrict people to get to stay in some, for say like big city, or to rent house or buy house, and also to get the education resource. So I think the other, like the viewer is not the only one who suffering in this system. And also the other point I want to mention is that kind of like everyday discrimination, because I do like it reminds me of some kind of everyday joke, which is like the Chinese people will say like if you dare to do something bad to me, you need to bear in mind my brother is from Xinjiang. It's like why this kind of discrimination can go like that way, and the people have no idea, not aware of it.
So I'm really, really sorry that we're really running out of time, and I'm very aware that there's an event about to start in this, but I was wondering, Shay, I know you've written an article about the need for sort of ethnic intersectionality within activism in China. I was wondering if you just have any concluding remarks to maybe like how the activism that is very hand-dominated that we hear about here.
Right. I mean, like, we've actually been talking about this, what feminist activists and queer activists in China could do. But Whiskey and Maize are, you know the realities on the ground much better than me. I think it's so difficult. The work that Maize and Whiskey are doing is already so sensitive and unpredictable. When you bring in issues of ethnic minorities, particularly Uyghur and Tibetans, that also jeopardizes your work. You know, that shuts down your work. So it's just so difficult at the moment. There's no easy solutions here. It's that's sorry to end on such a pessimistic note, but it is really bleak. It's really bleak in Tibet and among Uyghur communities in China at the moment, and we should really do our very best to educate ourselves on the horrific realities, everyday horrific realities that people are encountering across those areas.
Amazing. Thank you all so much. And maybe we can take this outside to the grass and we can all have a Q&A out there, maybe. Because I know I would love to carry on this conversation for hours and hours and hours if it was possible. Thank you to all of our speakers. Thank you all for coming. We now have a talk in here by Nadia about queer feminism in West Asia, and over at UCL where we have ushers